Hey there, Bible nerds. Welcome back to Chapters and Chuckles by Kaye, where we dive into the Bible chapter by chapter. So, Happy New Year, everyone. So, New Year, new book, and honestly, a much calmer pace. No rushing, no cram sessions. So, from now on, I'm just going to be doing one chapter per episode. So, we are strolling, not sprinting. And so I don't get too burnt out too. So I'm not rushing every time I'm recording because, I work. I have a nine to five job and I'm also a single mom. So I don't really have a lot of time. And usually after work, before I have to pick up my daughter, I usually have like about an hour to record. And sometimes I find myself rushing. So I'm like, okay, that's not really good and healthy for me. So we'll just be doing, one chapter per episodes. So I'm not rushing and I'm probably going to do 2 episodes per week. And we'll start off with that, and we'll go from there. So if you're new here, welcome. Grab your coffee or tea, your emotional sport water bottle, and get comfy. If you have been rocking with me since Genesis, bless you and your commitment, and thank you. So today we are starting Deuteronomy, and before you panic thinking, isn't this just Numbers part 2? Which, before, the first time I've read this, I'm like, this is literally just Numbers. But relax, Deuteronomy is actually Moses giving a heartfelt, slightly emotional, very honest, raw, farewell speech. So think end of year reflection mixed with a life lecture you actually need. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into Deuteronomy chapter 1. Okay, so chapter 1 deep dive. So Deuteronomy opens with Moses speaking directly to the Israelites. This is not God thundering from a mountain. This is Moses, leader, shepherd, tired dad of a stubborn nation, standing on the edge of the promised land. Important detail. They are right there, right? It's like geographically close enough to smell the milk and honey. Moses starts by reminding them where they have been. He names places, journeys, and moments that shape them. This is intentional. Memory matters. God's faithfulness matters. And Moses knows humans have selective memory when things get uncomfortable. He reminds them of Mount Horeb or Mount Sinai, where God told them, you have stayed long enough at this mountain. So translation, it is time to move. It is time to move. Growth requires movement. It's really hard to grow when you're stagnant, Comfort zones are cute, it's comfortable, it's familiar, but they are not destiny. God had already promised the land to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This was not a maybe. This was not a trial run. It was a done deal, but the people still struggled to trust it. Moses then talks about leadership overload. He admits he could not lead them alone. This part is so human. He appointed leaders, over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Delegation is biblical. Burnout is not holy. And yeah, like I did take a break during the holiday because and holiday is already, busy as it is, but being, a single mom who works Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, I work every day really because I'm a single mom. So on the weekends, I take care of my daughter. So it's a lot. And you don't want to get to that point where you get burned out. So you just have to be, mindful of that and take care of yourself. So then we hit the big moment, the sending of the spies. The spies, 2 of them. Right? So God told them to go in and take the land. The people said, let's send spies first. God allowed it, not because he needed information, but because the people needed reassurance. And yet, even after seeing the land flowing with abundance, fear took over. The spies confirmed that the land was amazing, big grapes, fertile soil, everything God promised. But then came the fear narrative. There's giants, strong cities. We can't do this. So this is where everything falls apart. The people let fear talk louder than God's promise. They complained. They doubted. They accused God of bringing them out just to destroy them. That part is wild when you think about everything they had already seen. Moses reminds them that God went before them. He fought for them. He carried them like a parent carries a child. That image alone is powerful. God was not distant, he was present and protective. But because of their unbelief, that generation would not enter the land, except Caleb and Joshua. And why? Because they trusted God fully. Then Moses admits something big. He also messed up. He struck the rock later on, disobeyed God, and as a result, he would not enter the land either. So leadership does not make you immune to consequences. So the chapter ends with them turning back toward the wilderness, a journey that should have taken days stretched into 40 years, all because fear won one moment. So, chapter 1 does not play around. Okay, so let's get real. How many times has God clearly said it's time to move, and we respond with, like, oh, it's daunting, or oh, it's scary, or I don't think I'm ready, or, all that. The Israelites were not punished for asking questions. They were stopped by unbelief. There is a difference. This chapter hits hard because it shows how quickly fear can rewrite a story God already finished writing. God had already promised victory. It's already written. It's just the journey itself that changes, depending on how the people are. So the people talk themselves into defeat. And let's talk about Moses for a second. He owned his mistakes. He did not sugarcoat leadership. He did not pretend he was perfect. That kind of honesty is refreshing. So what is something God has already promised, but fear keeps making you hesitate? So, sit with that. All right, fun fact corner. So the name Deuteronomy means second law, but it is not a new law. It is a retelling. Moses is retelling a new generation who did not personally experience the Exodus. Also, fun detail, the journey from Mount Horeb to the Promised Land should have taken 11 days. 11 days. But it took them 40 years, so let that sink in. And Deuteronomy is structured like an ancient farewell speech. This was common for leaders who knew their time was coming to an end. Moses is passing wisdom, not just rules. So chapter 1 sets the tone, but chapter 2 gets spicy. We are about to see how God still guides them even while they wander. Grace does not disappear just because consequences exist. Yeah, trust me, you are going to want to hear this. All right. So that's Deuteronomy chapter 1. One chapter, deep breath, no overwhelm. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who needs a reminder that fear does not get the final word. If you That's it. I'll leave it at that. I'll see you next episode as we keep walking through Deuteronomy together. Same vibe, same Bible love. And until then, stay curious, stay grounded, and remember, God does not bring you this far to drop you now.